Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we always love getting your requests, and this one's really fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like you're asking us to take a deep dive into the history of Islamic thought.
Oh,
And, especially focusing on three figures.
okay.
Avicenna, Suhrawardi, and Ibn Arabi.
Yeah, these are some pretty major thinkers, right?
They are.
Yes.
In the world of Islamic thought.
What's so fascinating is they weren't just philosophers. I mean, these were scientists,
Oh, no.
mystics, musicians. They really embody how Islamic thought intertwined these different disciplines.
Yeah, so let's kind of set the stage here. Our sources are giving us a really interesting picture of early Islamic thought.
Okay.
And, say we're talking 8th to 10th centuries.
Mm-hmm.
This is a time of, intense intellectual activity. It's almost like you can imagine a society expanding very rapidly.
Yeah.
And they're encountering all kinds of new situations.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, how do we apply the Quran and the Prophet's teachings?
Yeah, you have to remember that context. I mean, it's crucial to understanding this period. You've got these early thinkers trying to reconcile a timeless faith
Right?
with the demands
Yeah.
of a rapidly changing society.
Yeah, it's like, how do we bring this wisdom into the present moment
Exactly.
and deal with all these new challenges? And that's where the translation movement comes in.
Oh, the translation movement. That's a key part of the story.
The forces are saying
Yeah.
that the Abbasid caliphs were huge on translating ancient Greek, Persian, Indian texts into Arabic.
Wow.
They were basically like, let's just get all the knowledge we can from wherever we can find it.
It's more than just collecting scrolls, though. This eagerness to engage
Yeah.
with other intellectual traditions really shaped the evolution of Islamic thought.
Right. It wasn't just like,
Yeah,
let's put it on
yeah.
a shelf and forget about it.
Exactly.
It's like, how can we learn from this?
Yeah.
How can we integrate this
Yeah.
into our own evolving understanding of the world? And you know what happened? When you have this intellectual melting pot,
Yeah.
you have all of these different schools of law forming, you have Sufi brotherhoods popping up. It's a dynamic period for sure.
Yeah.
But, we got to talk about Avicenna.
Avicenna.
This is
Yeah.
one figure who really stands out in this period.
Ah, there's a life story for you. I mean, this guy. Born in present-day Uzbekistan,
Okay.
traveled across Persia, dealt with all sorts of hardship, and yet became a leading figure in medicine, philosophy, you name it.
It's amazing. And, our sources even mention that he crossed paths with the Sufi saint, Abu Sa'id.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine that conversation? I mean, like,
That must have been fascinating.
two totally different approaches to knowledge, just
Yeah.
bumping into each other in the desert.
A chance encounter that really speaks volumes about the intellectual landscape
It goes.
of that era.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
getting back to Avicenna, his work in medicine was revolutionary.
It was. I mean, his
Oh.
canon of medicine was like the textbook
For centuries.
in both the East and the West. And it's just wild how ahead of his time he was. I mean, our sources highlight how he integrated psychology into his medical practice, treating the whole person, not just the physical symptoms.
That's so important. And he was all about observation and experimentation. I mean, the guy was analyzing rainbows.
I know. In bathhouses,
Yeah.
to understand how light works.
Now, that's a dedicated scientist.
He was a true empiricist. I mean, he didn't just accept what the ancient authorities
He
said.
didn't. He wanted to test it. He
Right.
wanted to see for himself.
Right, he wanted to push the boundaries. I mean, for example,
Yeah.
he challenged Aristotle's theory of motion
How did he do that?
by dropping things
Yeah.
and seeing how they fell.
That's pretty straightforward.
Like really basic,
Yeah.
but brilliant.
But effective.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of hands-on approach that I can really get behind.
Yeah.
But, speaking of hands-on, Avicenna wasn't just a doctor and a scientist. He was a musician.
He really?
Yeah. And apparently a pretty good one. Our sources say that his musical theory actually reflects the structure of Persian music from his time.
So he saw a connection there between music and the universe.
I think he did.
That's fascinating.
I mean, his love for music
Yeah.
was deeply connected to his understanding of the cosmos. He saw musical harmony as a reflection of the divine order.
Wow.
Just like the movement of the celestial spheres.
That's pretty deep.
It is pretty deep. And when it comes to deep, we cannot forget Avicenna's theories about the soul.
Oh, yeah. The soul.
He had this whole system of 4 levels of intellect,
Okay.
culminating in what he called the intellectus adeptus,
The intellectus adeptus.
which he believed allowed us to grasp the universe
Bring it.
on like a fundamental level.
So he's saying that within us, There's a capacity for knowledge that goes beyond just sensory experience or
Right.
logical reasoning.
Okay, break that down for me a bit. What exactly did this intellectus adeptus do? According to Avicenna,
So Avicenna believed that this highest level of intellect allowed us to connect with what he called the active intellect. It's like a universal source of knowledge.
okay, so it's like tapping into a cosmic database or something.
In a way, yes. He saw it as a means to access profound truths about the universe that were beyond the reach of our ordinary senses or reason.
So beyond our everyday kind of limited perception.
Exactly. And he also placed a huge emphasis on the power of imagination.
Okay, not just for artists,
Mm-hmm.
but as a way of accessing deeper levels of reality. Interesting. I'm starting to see why this guy is considered such a revolutionary figure.
He was way ahead of his time in so many ways.
Even revolutionary figures get challenged,
Of
right?
course. That's how ideas evolve.
That's how knowledge progresses, and that's where Al-Ghazali enters the picture.
Al-Ghazali.
All right.
Okay, so Al-Ghazali was a brilliant scholar
Mm.
who at one point had a major spiritual crisis.
Really?
He was searching for truth and meaning,
Yeah.
and he found solace in Sufism.
Well, interesting. And, for our listeners, Sufism is this mystical tradition within Islam that emphasizes direct experience of the divine.
So it was like his cure, you could say that.
It was his way
Yeah.
of kind of coming back to himself and finding that connection that he was longing for.
And it profoundly shaped his views. He became a critic of philosophers like Avicenna.
Really? So he was pushing back against that very rational
Yeah.
scientific approach.
He was arguing that simply knowing about God wasn't enough. True understanding came through a heart cleansed of worldly desires.
So it was more about that inner transformation.
Yes, that purification.
Right. So Al-Ghazali is saying intellectual understanding. It's only one piece of the puzzle. You need that spiritual connection.
Precisely. He believed that over-reliance on logic and reason couldn't actually lead you further from the truth.
Wow. If your heart wasn't in the right place.
That's a critique that's echoed throughout history, even in modern debates
Yeah.
about science and spirituality.
Right. Because we often think
Okay.
about these things as being separate or even opposed. But Al-Ghazali is saying they need to be integrated.
Exactly. You need both, head and heart.
Okay, so we've got Avicenna pushing the boundaries of reason, observation, and then we've got Al-Ghazali emphasizing the importance of inner purification, spiritual experience.
It seems like Islamic thought had room for a whole spectrum of views, even back then.
Yeah, and it's amazing how this conversation is still relevant today.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so fascinating to explore.
And this sets the stage for a figure like Suhrawardi, who comes along in the 12th century with his own unique approach, what he called Illuminationist philosophy.
Illuminationist philosophy sounds intriguing.
It is.
But you know what? We've got to take a quick pause here. We're going to pick up Suhrawardi's story and explore his fascinating ideas about the Orient and Occident when we return for part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were just about to get into Suhrawardi
Oh, yes, Suhrawardi.
and his Illuminationist philosophy. This guy seems like a real mind bender.
He definitely challenges our conventional ways of thinking.
He does. And, remember how we were talking about light being a recurring theme?
Light, yes. That's central to Islamic thought.
It is. Well, Suhrawardi takes it to a whole other level.
Light. He develops this incredibly intricate system of thought centered around light.
Yeah, he's got this whole hierarchy of lights
Yeah.
with God being the ultimate source.
Exactly. And everything else emanating from that.
Right, and here's where it gets interesting, because he uses geographical metaphors.
Okay. To describe these different levels of reality, he talks about the Orient and the Occident.
Right, but he's not talking about like the East and West as we know them.
He's got something much more profound.
Okay, now that's where I get lost. What did he actually mean by those terms?
Think of it this way. For Suhrawardi, the true Orient isn't a place on a map.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual dimension, a realm of pure light that exists beyond our physical world.
So it's beyond our kind of everyday perception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Occident, in contrast, represents the world of matter.
Okay, where things are more obscured, less illuminated.
So you have this contrast between light and darkness.
Right.
It's not just a physical or geographical distinction.
Right.
It's about levels of reality.
Thinking about it, as a vertical dimension really shifts my perspective on spiritual journeys
Oh, so?
Well, it's not about traveling to a specific location,
Yeah.
on a map. It's about ascending to a higher state of being.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is.
Suhrawardi is suggesting that true enlightenment is about inner transformation. It's about moving closer to that source of pure light.
So it's an inward journey rather than an outward journey.
Precisely.
Where do angels fit into all this? I know he had...
The angels.
Yeah.
Suhrawardi had some pretty unique views about angels.
Yeah, what was he saying about them?
For him, angels are beings of pure light.
Okay. Intermediaries between the divine and the material world.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
He believed that every human being has an angelic counterpart, a celestial alter ego.
What? That represents our true selves.
Yes.
Wait, so it's like we have this hidden twin made of light.
You could say that. It's like a higher self, a pure potential that we all carry within us.
That's a pretty wild idea.
It is.
And it gets even more fascinating when you consider what he says
Yeah.
about the soul after death.
Oh, yeah, the afterlife. Suhrawardi describes 3 categories of souls.
Okay. The pure, the darkened, and the illuminated. So our actions in this life determine what happens to our soul in the afterlife.
According to Suhrawardi, yes. The illuminated souls, those who have purified themselves, achieved a higher level of knowledge, they will experience a closer proximity to the supreme light.
It really makes you think about the choices we make, doesn't it?
It does.
If we want to reach that state of illumination, we have to actively cultivate our inner light.
That's the core of Suhrawardi's philosophy. It's about aligning ourselves with that divine source of illumination through knowledge, purification, and spiritual practice.
And these ideas really took root.
They did.
I mean, especially in Persia and Anatolia. Thinkers were writing commentaries on his work for centuries after his death.
Wow.
It's like his ideas sparked a whole intellectual movement.
Yeah. It's incredible how one person's vision can have such a ripple effect.
It is, across time and cultures. But speaking of influential figures, we can't leave out Ibn Arabi.
Oh, Ibn Arabi.
Master of the Sufi tradition. This guy's considered one of the most profound mystical thinkers of all time.
He was a towering figure in Sufism.
He was.
He developed this monumental system of thought, exploring the nature of God, the universe, and the human soul.
And you know what's worth mentioning? That even Averroes, a staunch rationalist who was more focused on logic and Aristotle, was captivated by Ibn Arabi's insights.
That's interesting.
So even someone who championed reason was drawn to Ibn Arabi's mystical perspective.
It seems so. Averroes even said that Ibn Arabi had opened the locks of divine doors.
Wow. High praise indeed. Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more. About Ibn Arabi's ideas. I know he was. Big on interpreting the hidden meanings behind things.
Oh, yeah. He was a master of ta'wil, or symbolic interpretation.
So basically, he believed that the natural world, the verses of the Quran, our inner experiences, were all symbols pointing to deeper spiritual truths.
Exactly. He saw the universe as a vast book filled with secret messages waiting to be decoded.
Okay, so he's saying we should be looking for deeper meaning in everything we encounter.
He is. He believed that the same spiritual essences could be found in all things. And through ta'wil, we could unlock those meanings and connect with the divine.
And I know he's also famous for his doctrine of the transcendent unity of being.
But
isn't that basically pantheism?
Well, not quite. I mean, it's easy to misunderstand. Ibn Arabi on this point,
Okay.
while he did believe in a profound interconnectedness between God and creation, he wasn't saying that everything is God.
Right, so it's not like God is a tree and God is a rock.
No. It's more nuanced than that. He believed that God is the ultimate source of reality.
Right.
And all things are connected back to that source. But they maintain their own distinct existence.
Okay, so it's more about a relationship
of interdependence
than complete merging.
Exactly. He used the analogy of a web.
Okay, each thread is connected to a central point, but each thread remains distinct.
Right.
And to explain this further, he introduced the concept of the universal man.
The universal man.
Also known as the Logos. Okay, now we're getting into some heavy philosophical territory here. What exactly is the universal man?
Think of it as a blueprint containing all the possibilities of creation. It's a reflection of God's attributes.
Okay.
And it serves as a mediator between the divine and the created world.
So it's like a bridge between the spiritual and the material realms.
Precisely.
And this is where the idea of the macrocosm and the microcosm comes in.
Ah, yes.
Ibn Arabi believed there's a deep correspondence between the universe as a whole.
The macrocosm.
Right? The macrocosm. And the human being the microcosm.
The microcosm.
It's that. As above, so below idea.
Exactly.
But I've heard that phrase before. I've never really understood what it meant.
Imagine two mirrors
Well,
facing each other. Each reflects the other infinitely.
right. Okay.
For Ibn Arabi, the human being reflects the universe, and the universe reflects the human being.
Okay. We contain within us a reflection of the entire cosmos.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it?
It is a beautiful image. It is.
And Ibn Arabi also had some unique views on creation.
He did, didn't he?
He did.
Something, a continuous cycle
Yeah.
of annihilation
Yeah.
and recreation.
Right. He didn't see creation as a one-time event, but rather an ongoing process.
So it wasn't just like, okay, God created the universe and now it's done.
Not at all. He compared it to breathing, inhaling, exhaling, taking in and releasing.
So he's saying that the universe is being created.
And dissolved.
Like a cosmic dance of existence and non-existence.
That's a great way to visualize it.
It is. For Ibn Arabi, at every moment, the universe returns to its source in God and is then remanifested.
It's a never-ending cycle fueled by divine love and mercy.
It's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is.
And I've also heard that Ibn Arabi was remarkably open to other religions. It's not something you hear about often, especially with mystics from the past.
He was a visionary in that regard.
So what was his perspective on other faiths?
He saw prophets from different religious traditions as aspects of the supreme logos, each revealing a facet of divine truth.
So instead of viewing religions as competing ideologies, he saw them as different paths leading to the same ultimate goal.
Exactly. He sought to uncover the universal meanings within diverse faith traditions, focusing on the underlying unity rather than doctrinal differences.
Okay, so he was really trying to find that common ground.
He was a bridge builder between different faiths.
And that openness to different paths, it is reflected in his own life as well. Well, sources mention that he had numerous students who helped transmit his teachings across the Islamic world. His ideas even influenced Shia spirituality, which is a testament to his far-reaching impact.
Absolutely. Ibn Arabi's legacy continues to inspire thinkers and seekers to this day.
You know, it's amazing. We've looked at Avicenna, Al-Ghazali, Suhrawardi, and Ibn Arabi, and they all seem to be pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
They were pioneers in their own way.
They were, in their own ways.
They integrated reason, observation, and mystical insight in their pursuit of understanding the divine. They challenge us to think beyond our usual categories of knowing.
And they weren't afraid to ask the tough questions about the nature of reality, the meaning of existence, the purpose of human life.
Questions, they continue to resonate with us today.
And, you know, speaking of questions, we've got a lot more to unpack when we come back in part 3. Let's explore another theme that runs through these sources.
Okay, what's that?
The idea of the soul's journey.
The soul's journey. That's a big one.
Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, before the break, we were talking about the profound ideas of Ibn Arabi.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that runs through all these sources is this theme of the soul's journey.
Oh, yeah. The soul's journey.
It's almost a universal question.
It is.
Isn't it? Where do we come from? Where are we going? What's it all about?
A question that has captivated thinkers, across cultures throughout history. And these Islamic thinkers offer some really illuminating perspectives.
They do, like Avicenna with his image of the soul descending from the heavens like a spark of lightning.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful imagery.
Isn't that beautiful? It's poetic, but it also kind of hints at this idea that we're here on a mission to learn, to grow, and ultimately to return to our source.
And it wasn't just about passively waiting for that return. Avicenna emphasized the importance of free will, of actively choosing the path of knowledge and virtue.
So we have a role to play in this journey.
We do. He believed that through our actions, we shape our souls and determine our spiritual destiny.
So it's not just about where we end up, but about the journey itself and the choices we make along the way.
Precisely. It's about the process of becoming.
And this journey isn't without its challenges, is it?
Of course not.
Remember Al-Ghazali.
Yeah.
And his focus on the distractions and temptations of the material world.
He argued that our hearts are easily swayed by worldly desires, which can hinder our spiritual progress.
So it's like we're constantly being pulled in different directions between
Yeah.
our lower desires and this higher calling.
That tension is definitely there.
Yeah.
Al-Ghazali believed that the path to spiritual liberation involved purifying the heart, turning away from fleeting pleasures.
Right. To focus on what is eternal.
It's about aligning our intentions with a higher purpose.
You know, it makes me think about how easy it is to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of that bigger picture.
It happens to the best of us.
It does.
That's why practices like meditation, contemplation are so important. Yeah.
In many spiritual traditions, including Sufism,
Right.
they help us to cultivate that inner awareness and resist those external pulls.
But each of these thinkers had their own unique take on this journey, didn't they?
They did. They each brought their own insights and perspectives.
Like Suhrawardi, for example, with his idea of the soul's celestial counterpart.
Right, the angelic alter ego, that pure being of light that guides us back to our source.
It's almost like we have this inner compass, this higher self that's leading us towards illumination.
I love that image.
And he believed this journey wasn't just a solo mission.
He didn't. He talked about how illuminated souls, those who had achieved a higher level of knowledge and purity, could actually help guide others on their path.
So it's like this chain of light,
Right.
each person illuminating the path for those who follow.
That's beautiful. I love that.
And then you have Ibn Arabi, who kind of viewed the soul's journey through this lens of his cyclical understanding of creation. Remember, the breathing analogy, that constant process of inhalation and exhalation. Yeah.
So he's saying that the soul, like the universe, is constantly undergoing this process of dissolution and renewal.
Precisely.
With each cycle. We shed old layers of ourselves and are reborn into a higher state of being.
It's like a spiral, ever upward,
Yeah.
drawn closer and closer to the divine source.
It's a dynamic and evolving journey, not a static destination.
It's not a one-time event, it's a process.
Like we're always in motion, always becoming.
That's a wonderful way to think about it.
It is.
These thinkers remind us that the soul's journey is an ongoing process of awakening to our true nature and ultimately realizing our connection with the divine.
You know, it's amazing how these different interpretations, while unique, also share some common threads.
What do you see as those commonalities?
Well, they all seem to emphasize the importance of conscious effort, of actively choosing the path of growth.
Right, and aligning our actions with our highest aspirations. They all agree that it's not enough to just passively believe. We have to live those beliefs, to embody them in our thoughts, words, and actions.
And they also seem to agree that love is at the heart of it all.
Love.
Love for knowledge, love for the divine, and ultimately, love for our own true selves.
Love is that driving force
Yeah.
behind our evolution, the fuel
Yeah.
that propels us towards our destination.
It's a beautiful and inspiring vision.
It is.
But they also acknowledge that this path isn't always easy.
Of course not. There are challenges, temptations, times when we might feel lost or discouraged.
They understood that. Growth can be messy, unpredictable.
It's not a linear progression. It's a winding path.
Right. With twists and turns.
Exactly.
And they remind us that we're not alone on this journey.
We're not. We have the guidance of tradition, the support of spiritual communities, and the ever-present grace of the divine.
It's a message of hope, encouragement, reminding us that even in the midst of our struggles, we have the resources and support we need to keep moving forward.
And to appreciate the journey itself.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Philosophy, science, spirituality, even music. It's amazing. It's a testament to how interconnected all these different areas of knowledge are. It's like these thinkers were reminding us not to compartmentalize our understanding of the world, to see the connections, the unity in everything.
Come walking away
from this deep dive, feeling incredibly inspired. You know, these thinkers, despite the challenges and complexities of their times, offered a message of hope, possibility.
They did.
They believed in the power of the human spirit to transcend limitations and achieve greatness.
They believed in our potential to become the best versions of ourselves.
They did.
They believed in the transformative power of knowledge, the importance of ethical conduct, and the possibility of creating a more just and compassionate world.
It's a timeless message
It is.
that resonates just as strongly today as it did centuries ago.
It's a message that's as relevant as ever.
And a message that invites us to continue exploring, questioning, seeking those aha moments that illuminate our understanding of the world and our place within it.
Beautifully said.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the history of Islamic thought.
It's been a pleasure.
It has. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of existence.
I love it.